Welcome to this video for round 4 of the Tal Memorial 2013. And let's get right to the games. First game is Morozevich against Kramnik. And Moro is playing e4. And Kramnik plays his usual 1 e5. He pretty much stopped playing the Petrov. I really think he concentrates on the Berlin nowadays. But we get knight c3 on move 3 and transpose to a Scotch opening. In fact, this Scotch 4 knights Kramnik has played himself as white, surprisingly, a couple of times against Aronian, and now Morozevich is playing this line. Yeah, this is very much the main line. Both sides really have a hard time to deviate. You can, but this is like the 90% of all games main line. Here Kramnik has played, from the white side, Kramnik has played the move h3, which, I mean, this cannot really be the refutation of black's play. But okay, it cannot be refuted anyway. So what I'm getting at is that h3 is certainly not a bad move, but not a move that really sends a shiver down your spine. It's just a kind of useful move covering g4 and preparing queen to f3. I don't think that black is in any big trouble after that as well. But Moro played the traditional main move, bishop g5. Kramnik played c6, covering this important pawn, and queen f3. This is the overwhelming main line, actually, with queen f3. Here Kramnik played bishop to d6. This is one of the well-known continuations. There's also h6, which is the dry way to play it, as white now can capture and play this kind of setup. This is in fact one of the safest lines in the whole of chess that I know. I mean, this is the kind of endgame where white should really draw against any sort of opposition. Okay, but Kramnik played bishop e6, which is a bit more interesting. h3, covering the important square here against those kind of moves. It's a tactical thing. This is not so easily playable anyway, but h3 is useful. Rook b8, very important, attacking this pawn, and the rook sometimes even can be useful on b4. For example, after moves like h6, bishop h4, rook b4 wins a tempo. b3, interesting decision. This very often this rook b8 move is answered by knight d1, later to a3. b3 allows bishop to e5, which looks a bit uncomfortable at first, eyeing this knight, and it cannot move because of the pin. But white has a tactical reply, bishop f4, using this diagonal, and now we get a forced sequence. Kramnik took here, which is the best move. You shouldn't really do that. This is helping white somewhat. White's dream is queen on d4 and knight here, blockading these pawns on light squares. This would be quite an achievement for white. So black is avoiding that. Just taking on c3 is good. Takes here, takes on a1. So we have this sequence of captures, and now white would be substantially better if it wasn't for the move played now. Bishop g4 is very strong with the tempo on the queen, and this kamikaze bishop is taken, and now this bishop is taken. So we have a simplification with a knight left against a bishop. The bishop is a good piece in an open kind of position, but this is an open position in a way, but here the knight is also a good piece, simply because If we continue for 1 or 2 moves, like this, now in this kind of position, this knight is not easily disturbed. It is positioned on f6, and it can only be attacked with g5, where it is always taken. Besides those kind of moves, and at the moment g5 is completely nonsensical. What I'm getting at, this is a quite stable post for this knight, and it can always be used even on a more centered square. Well, this bishop, it helps to set up this battery, but you never get the mate on h7. So this bishop might be pointing into thin air. In the game, Moro played c4, attacking this pawn, maybe trying to isolate it on d5. And Kramnik played the ambitious move d4. He also could have played something like this, where not much is happening really. But d4 is not bad. c5. This is necessary. I think if White would play some sort of lazy move, let's say this, Black can try to set up a position with c6, c5. For example, rook here and c5. This could be an idea, the general idea. And after that, Black may improve with queen e8 and so on. This looks quite nice. c5 is good. It keeps this pawn unsupported, and maybe this can be a weakness later. Yeah, rook to e5 and rook and queen e8. So Kramnik is playing for active pieces. He gives up the pawn and activates with rook d5. Queen c3. Yeah, the queen needs to watch over this bishop. And here, in fact, Kramnik played slightly inaccurate. With queen e7, he could have gotten a pretty decent position. For example, here b4 and knight g4. The big idea is that after rook e1, Black plays rook takes d3 and just wins the game. Important tactical shot. The thing is, in the game, he didn't play queen e7 and b4. He didn't insert this pair of moves. He instantly took, and now after rook e1, this queen is attacked with a check. So rook d3, check, of course, loses the house. And this means this slight problem. What is Black doing now? He played queen d7. He could have gone rook e5 as well, but this endgame after the capture is also not very comfortable. This bishop placed on e4, or maybe at g2 later, being more stable, is always putting this pressure on c6, and White has got 3 against 2 pawns, so in the long run he can maybe push pawns, and the pawn on the other side is not so terribly important. This is quite a tricky endgame. He played queen d7, bishop e4, rook e5, and in this position here, this is the key position of the game. Here Moro could have played bishop to f3, and this leads to a similar endgame described before, after taking, for example. And now something like f5, b4. This kind of endgame, we've got an excellent bishop, always pressurizing the pawn, and it is quite quick here. b5, c6, the pawns. I think White is White is probably close to winning this position. Kramnik's inaccurate move 24 really could have gotten him into huge trouble. But in the game, he played f3, and he maybe, I don't know, overlooked this. Yeah, now, after this, Black takes here and is even better. After b4, this was hanging as well. There's f5. Maybe he miscalculated something in the complications that are coming up now. Yeah, here White doesn't have much choice. Need to grab this knight, and now Black took the bishop. And yeah, from first glance you think, okay, maybe this e pawn is even dangerous, but it's hardly possible to get to something substantial. White also always has this counterplay. We see with the queen, with all these checks and the spins. In fact, right here, after further repetition, a draw was agreed, which is a fair result here. Both sides have problems to make any sort of headway. So Morozevich really had one big chance here. Instead of f3 here, bishop f3, getting into this mixed endgame with queen and minor piece against queen and minor piece, where the bishop is the much stronger unit. Yeah, bit of a shame for Moro. He could have really put much pressure on Kramnik. Okay, let's go to the next game. Andreikin against Carlsen. We have a symmetrical English, and Carlsen is playing with an early d5. This is an interesting line for black. It's it gives you some chances to even play ambitiously for an edge as black. If white plays very timidly, like let's say white plays very often plays something like this, just for argument's sake. This is this reversed Morozevich bind, where black can easily be better if white plays in a sluggish manner. This is g3, but there are other moves. I, for example, have played e4 a couple of times. This is a bit of an old-fashioned move, but it's still interesting. This kind of line leads to interesting play. It can still be recommended. Black players probably have forgotten most of the theory. But another interesting line is e3, and this is played now by Andreikin. Carlsen now surprisingly plays the move g6. In fact, I always thought this move would be bad, but Andreikin doesn't play the prescribed antidote. He played bishop b5 check, which isn't bad, but back when I played e3, I studied this years ago. Queen b3 was the argument against g6. The idea being that if black takes now, queen c3 is very embarrassing, attacking the rook and the pawn. So white wins a pawn, or black also needs to play very ugly moves, like f6 for instance, after which you can even think about just playing bishop c4. I mean, this looks crazy, f6. Okay, black obviously doesn't take, but what are you playing if you're not taking? This is the problem. Let's say knight here. There's also this idea of going knight to e4, attacking this pawn, and black maybe can try to sacrifice it, but it always was considered to be somewhat better for white. So a bit surprising that white didn't go for that. He played, as mentioned, he played bishop to b5 check, bishop d7. Yeah, this is a possible move tactically. Knight d5, bishop b5 is great for black, and the capture is also nothing. Yeah, queen b3 was played, and took on c3. Yeah, here white played knight to e5. Funny move, threatening a mate on f7. Let's look at the alternatives quickly. Queen c3 is actually a big error now after this. Black is just winning. Yeah, this, something like this is not defensible. Just too much. There's also knight c6, long castles. I mean, this is just an exchange for pawn even, and white's position is a disaster. So we cannot play queen c3, but b takes c3 was certainly worth considering. The idea being to just push d4 and bishop a3, this kind of setup. Was interesting, not bad at all. It's a bit similar to Grunfeld, but not quite. Yeah, knight e5 was played, a tricky move. Yeah, as mentioned, threatening mate, and yeah, what should black do? I think probably need to do that here, but it's not a problem. White captured, and now Carlsen decided to simply clarify this position and get all the pieces off. It's quite impossible to do anything ambitious as black. Here, not much else than b6, and after bishop d6 now, yeah, white doesn't have any great alternative to capturing. Knight f3 back, it's also quite nothing to be honest. So he took it, played a4, a5, long castles, quite, yeah, not an expected move, but the king is quite useful here on the queen side to defend it. After a5, and there's not much else, black exchanged and played bishop c7, and here we actually already see that it is very difficult for white to make any kind of progress. The only weakness that black has is the b6 pawn after the capture on b6, and this is defended by the bishop, and this is one of those cases where, yeah, bad bishops protect good pawns. This funny figure of speak created by Romanian Grandmaster Schuba. Yeah, it's often quite correct. Important pawns are covered by bad bishops. Yeah, but what is white supposed to do? This weakness is weak, but how do you attack it? If you attack it with rooks, it doesn't help. This bad bishop is defending it, and you cannot attack it with your bishop, which is a good bishop, but it doesn't attack anything. So, long story short, black puts lots of pawns on dark squares, but there's simply no headway whatsoever. Captured, and now Carlsen even deliberately puts everything on dark squares to close the position, and on the a file we have the rooks coming off, and game drawn here. Yeah, this is a kind of position where you can basically instruct people even with without knowing the rules of chess to make a draw against a world-class player. You simply need to shuffle the bishop and take every pawn that is presented to you. In case there is some desperate attempt, it's just completely dead. Yeah, quite a dull game. What can you say? But it's quite strange that he didn't play queen b3 here. But okay, I think it was a try to get something in a forgotten line. I mean, it's not, g6 is just one response. Here there are other interesting ideas. For example, what I analyzed back then, I still remember that, was this continuation. Check. Which was quite interesting for white. And I mean, it's not this kind of dull game didn't arise by force. It sometimes just happens. There are many interesting lines here for white, but it simply didn't happen. Okay, yeah, switch to Aronian against Gelfand. I won't spend so much time on the game. It wasn't a bad game, not at all. It was, if you look at it a bit, I think it was almost, yeah, it seems like both players didn't make any kind of mistakes. So it's frankly not so much happening. We had the same opening as in Carlsen against Gelfand from the candidates, and we similarly get this kind of structure. This also happened in the Gelfand Carlsen game, but Gelfand game. But here Gelfand went for a bishop d7 setup with the exchange on d4 and bishop c6, And here now he plays with knight e5. This is a possible improvement. h3 to cover g4. And we can put a couple of moves on the board. White's idea is to make use long term of this 3 against 2 pawns. Maybe push those pawns in the long run. And also he's got a slight lead in development. White has got all pieces in play, including the rooks somewhat involved. While black, black hasn't connected rooks yet, and this queen, too much paint. This queen on d8 is, it doesn't have a comfortable spot really. So White has a little something, and he kept a little something for the whole game, but it never really, came to something where you think, okay, White is maybe winning. It was always nice looking like this. Isn't this nice looking? This bishop is blocking the pawn. You can attack here, but it's no real progress. Yeah, or here after this exchange and b4, White is certainly somewhat better. I mean, this is a good piece. You've got 3 against 2 with a potential passer later on the queen side, but having a nice position or a nice looking position and actually winning a game is quite a difference. And it's simply that also Gelfand is an excellent defender. He centralized the king and got rid of this strong piece. This is always a good defensive method. If you're not quite sure what's the best defense, look at the best piece of your opponent, look at your worst piece, and if you manage to exchange it, it's usually a very helpful procedure. The knight on f6 wasn't especially bad. I mean, it's not doing much. Look at those squares, they're all controlled, but it's clear that this knight on c5 is an annoying piece. It can never be really attacked because of this. So you want to get rid of this piece, and this means knight d7 is a very logical and good move. Yeah, and White has no real way to avoid this. You can drop back, but this is actually not really nothing getting into this ugly pin. So we had the exchange, and with those exchanges and a pretty decent blockade of the pawns, it's clear that black is in no trouble whatsoever. He took the d file and now exchanged even more. It's really hard to suggest anything else. It's a very straightforward, very correct game, which unfortunately happens to end in a draw because simply they don't make any mistakes. White played for the c6, and now we have this trade. Black cannot avoid the loss of the b5 pawn. And here a draw was agreed after move 40. Maybe they have a 40 move anti-draw rule or something. They could have agreed earlier. Yeah, it sometimes happens. I think Vichy had a little something. This kind of position here is a minimal, somehow little advantage, but it never really materialized that it's enough to win. And it seems like Gelfand did an excellent job of defending the position. It's not much fun, but yeah, it happens in your job. It's not always fun. Okay, so the next game is Karjakin against Mamedyarov, and we quite surprisingly get a Pirt's defense. Surprising because this isn't the most popular opening on the top level. Mamedyarov once in a while plays this, but usually in Blitz and Rapid, and not in tournament chess. Early bishop d3, interesting. Not quite sure what this is doing. Quite curious. I prepared, of course, a little bit for the video, and I wasn't really aware that this move order was chosen. The thing is, knight f3. Oops, this was strange. Knight f3 is the overwhelming main move, after which black can castle, or play c5, which is the more tactical move, let's say, a more direct move. It can get very complicated quickly with this kind of complicated variations. Or black can castle, as mentioned, and after bishop d3 can play all kinds of moves, knight a6, knight c6, and in fact c5 doesn't have a great reputation. The fun thing is here Mamedov castled, knight f3, and then played c5, and actually it really has a bad reputation, this move. Strangely enough, after taking, the normal move, of course, is just to recapture, but this after e5 leads to some edge for white, simply because this pawns here, the e5 pawn, it blocks this bishop, and this means that white has some edge. For example, let's say something like this, and then this move, also bishop e4 coming, putting pressure here. This is a really nice position for white. Okay, why did Mamedov play this? Okay, he had an idea, obviously, and the idea is knight bd7. And in fact, in my database of 5 point something million games, this position only was on the board one time, just in one rather unknown game. And what is knight bd7? Yeah, white of course takes now on d6, and black recaptures. So black has sacrificed the pawn right here on move 8, and does he have enough compensation? To be honest, I don't think so, but what black has, he's got some ideas. Yeah? Knight c5, attacking e4, rook e8. You can attack the center in various ways, but it still looks strange to me that you should be able to sacrifice this pawn. It's also quite weird, because if you give it to a computer, and Mamedov, I don't know, I would expect that he had prepared this. The computer also gives white a very substantial advantage. Kayakin always plays f4 here, so if you play the Pirz, you know that he will play this usually, and so this is maybe really a preparation by Mamedov. He only had spent like 7 minutes here. But if you look at this now, castles was played, rook e8 and h3. It's a useful move to cover this square, prevent possible bishop g4 later, or other pieces to g4. Yeah, in this position, it's not clear to me what black's plan is. If you play something like this, for example, you just play e5, and yeah, I don't think it's enough compensation really. In the game, he played this quite astonishing move. Of course, you need to yeah, go for extreme measures here. You cannot play slow maneuvering chess with this pawn down. Okay, b5, it intends to play b4 and getting to the pawn, so white needs to take it, and he took it with the knight e4. This was the idea, obviously. Takes. Yeah, this is not really a helpful move, because oops, no. This is hanging, so you cannot take here because of bishop a8. So this was simply played, knight d6, rook back, and now white yeah, took on c8 to clarify matters. And yeah, what this white is 2 pawns up really, and yeah, this never is enough compensation for 2 pawns, but in fact it is not so easy to play. I mean, black's got more pieces in play. The rooks especially are good. This is a good bishop, and white is slightly passive with lots of pieces on the back rank. It's simply this case, if you give away 2 pawns, if it is a sacrifice or even just a blunder, if you give away 2 pawns, you get open files. Simply the consequence. If you toss away your pawns, you have space for your pieces. And therefore black has some compensation, but it shouldn't be enough for 2 pawns. Okay, rook e1, he wanted to get rid of one of the active rooks. This was successful. And here we see that, yeah, black is a bit, rook d8, knight e4, knight a4. He's got some activity. Knight d3 played. Yeah, and here I think black could have obtained quite good counterplay with rook d8. Increasing the pressure, maybe intending to take and play queen a6, winning this pawn. So if white plays a nothing move, yeah, let's say this one, just for argument's sake, then this line, and black will get the pawn and still remain active. So oops, rook d8. This is what I need to show. Setting up this this pin can be answered by bishop to d4. And after the capture, there's also this f pawn hanging in addition to the b pawn. So let's say something like this covers the b pawn, but not this one. And this is in a position where black can put up very stiff resistance. Just a pawn down compared to 2 pawns and active pieces. He played the capture on d3, and after that it seems with white returning 1 pawn, he can activate the pieces enough. a4, and he keeps the pawn. Still black is fairly active, so it's not all lost. Yeah, here black should probably play a move like rook d8, attacking the bishop. What he shouldn't do is what he played. He played queen a1, and this has a big drawback. Here white could have improved his chances considerably by playing rook to d3, intending rook d7. And this rook activation on the 7th rank attacking f7 is in fact very hard to prevent. It seems that this should really win for white. Instead he played rook to e1, and after queen b2, rook d8, black's got the activity. This rook is just passive here, and just compare going on the 7th rank, and now it's on e1 again. And now it still is a bit of something for white, but black in fact defended cautiously. Well, cautiously is the wrong word. He defended correctly, yeah, in an active fashion, and not playing any passive moves. So this was lost, but black is just far too active here to be in any substantial trouble. Yeah, the king is trying to initiate the counterplay. Yeah, go for utmost activity. After rook takes h4 here, it was agreed drawn. Let's say this check, king moves, and rook a7. And there's absolutely no way for white to make any progress. This pawn is always attacked, and if you move away the rook, it is gone. You can play something like this, but this is also 0 progress. And after here and f5, this is one next. So it's a dead draw, and it was agreed drawn between those two. There was probably something for white. I mean, after this queen a1 on move 24, there was one big opportunity here with rook to d3, and very weird opening choice with c5 takes and knight bd7. Quite interesting. Alright, so only got one more game to cover, and this was the most interesting game of the round. Caruana against Nakamura. Yeah, great matchup. And also if you look at the tournament standings, both players are on a plus score, 2 out of 3, and they both haven't played a draw yet, so won 2 games, lost 1. So nice matchup. Let's see what happens. Nakamura recently pretty much relied on the knight off as his main defense against e4. He varies a lot, of course, but the knight of is really a point. Looking for a word here. One of the pillars of his opening repertoire. He's playing this rather frequently. Okay, f3 and bishop e3 for the English attack. And here black has got the main choice. Here is a knight d7, bishop e7 moves like this, but there's also h5, and this is one of those recent interesting developments in opening theory that maybe would have shocked players like 30 years ago, or at least surprised. Yeah, black plays a flank pawn move, h5, rather early, instead of developing something or doing something in the center. But it's still a rather good idea. The idea simply is, yeah, it's a sort of a preemptive strike against g4. And g4 is one of the main ideas of white here. g4, g5, g4, h4, g5. This pawn storm, especially if black has castled long, and where else would you go than short? If black castles short, of course not long. If black castles short, what else are you going to do? So h5 is quite interesting. It prevents a key idea of white's, and this also pretty much entices white to go for short castles. Yeah, here white went for knight d5. It's not strictly necessary to play this move. You can also play bishop e2, for example. But okay, knight d5 has been played before, and it is in fact a standard motif in this kind of position. Black takes with the knight to keep the bishops, and now places the bishop on f5. See, h5 is useful. It's also preventing g4 now, and this bishop now plays a useful role on this diagonal. This knight to d5 move is really a classic approach in this structure, championed by Russian legend Efim Geller back in the starting in the 50s and 60s, when the Naidov was becoming popular. He was quite successful with this idea, just putting a knight on d5, letting it capture, and then the e-pawn goes to d5 and forms a 4 against 3 majority on the queen side. So this pawn. So white's idea is to use his extra pawn on the queen side in the long run to play this kind of breakthrough using the extra pawn here. And we see this happening in the game.
Check.
Yeah, this is in fact interesting. Nakamura is giving this check here very quickly, also probably all prep. g3, and then returns to f6, which surprised me, because it's quite uncommon to get your queen out here before you play bishop e7. In general, in the Naidov, this is a very uncommon maneuver. I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just not frequently seen. Castles and bishop e7, so he's got the queen out actively. And now white plays knight to a5. This is in fact a very interesting position. What white wants to do, he wants to play c4, b4, c5, as mentioned. But this is in fact not so easy. This knight on b3 is really blocking the b-pawn. But where are you going to go? You want to move the knight and make sure the pawns are starting to roll. So what he did is he advanced it, and this is not a bad idea. Attacking b7, black needs to react somehow. And you cannot really play b6 because the knight to c6 is just too much. Don't want this piece on c6 if you're black. So black must cover with rook c7. And now he played first bishop d3 and c4. So white is realizing his plan. Black exchanged, and played a centralizing move. White played b4. So how to assess this position? It's probably somewhere between equal and maybe white has a little something. On first glance, I was very much preferring white, but if you look at it a little bit more closely, you see that it's in fact absolutely not clear. There are various things that are not helping white. One point is the slightly weakened king side, and especially the f3 pawn. So white cannot easily move the rook here or play something like this, because f3 is always, it needs some protection. Black also has got the irritating move h5, h4 at the later stage, and in fact even this breakthrough with c4, c5, it is not easy at all to force through, because black is on it with lots of pieces, really. Probably all this is about equal, but it's very difficult to play. And we see after bishop f8, rook c2 e1. Yeah, this surprised me that you move away the rook. But it's not easy at all to make any progress. If white, for example, plays the knight back here to support him, then black will play h4 with some counterplay possible. If white now tries to break through, there's even this move as a possibility, because this is not possible. And what is white playing next? Taking on d6 is really giving up the whole position. So it's not clear at all, not at all. But I actually prefer this still to rook c2 e1, g6, normal move, queen d2, queen f5. Yeah, somehow this queen maneuver h4, f6, f5 led to an active post for the queen, so it wasn't bad, it seems. a4. Yeah, by now one problem is the knight on a5. I mean, it's doing something. It's always attacking the pawn, and it's ready to jump to c6 if black plays b6. But another role of this knight is to protect the c4 pawn. You have a protection here, and if white wants to improve the knight or use it somewhere else, there's always the c4 pawn to worry about. For example, you'd like to drop back actually, and after h4, can I put, knight f6 was played. White wants to push this pawn, and you really maybe want to move the knight back to prepare that, but then c4 is hanging again. So it's not easy at all for white to make any progress. It's probably not bad, his position, but it's very difficult to play, to make any headway. Bishop b6, drop back, and f4. Yeah, this surprised me, but the idea is that black probably needs to play e4. Not that it is bad, but this is the idea. And after e4, white gets the good square on d4 for his pieces. So white is okay. Rook c7, and now here in this position, white is committing a mistake in a very complicated position. He played the move h3, preparing g4. It's an understandable move, and certainly a move that let's say I would have thought about in the position. Black, of course, cannot take it. f6 is hanging. But the problem is, and this is why this move is a mistake, is bishop g7, and this is played by Nakamura. He covers this knight, this pawn is hanging, and there's also a third move which you can try to find as a small exercise. Here white needs to do something else. Not 100% sure what's the best move. There are moves like this, for example, possible. Okay, but let's see what happened. h3, bishop g7, queen g2. And here black has a very strong move, and this is actually something you can use as a small exercise. The move that you need to find alters the position fundamentally and gives black a big advantage. I'll be quiet for a couple of seconds so that you can pause the video and think for yourself. Alright, I'm giving the move now, and it's b5. Very, very strong move. The idea is you want to get rid of the c-pawn, make it move, and then black wins the d-pawn. It's very, very tricky already. White took on b5, and if white now takes here, then there's just knight d5 and black is winning. Simply, it's equal material for the moment, but black's got two central pass pawns, and those pieces are not doing much. Black is much better here. Almost close to winning. The computer says it's winning already. So what is white supposed to do if you cannot take? Your pawn on c4 is forced to move in some way, and then the position falls apart. Caruana tried to capture on f6 and play g4, but after taking, there's a check on d4, very important. King h2 and queen f6, and now black has got a big edge. He's got the strong pawn, the strong bishop, and there are ideas to even play against the exposed king. And in fact, after knight to c6, bishop back, g5, queen f5, black was getting a decisive attack. White now tried some desperation moves like this, but after taking simply on b4 and d6, black has rook c3. After rook takes e4, black simply played king g7 and prepared the deadly check on h8, and white doesn't even have a check on his own to somehow confuse matters. Black is just coming with rook h8, winning the whole thing. So an excellent game by Nakamura, really. If you add this, if you I mean, this is really strong. If you look at this game, it's 40 moves or 39 moves, and if you check it with a comp, it doesn't even criticize one single move of Nakamura's. This is exceptionally strong, and it's also very instructive to see this b5 move played to break down the center. The whole problem started with this h3 move. If white plays a decent, let's say, consolidating move, I don't think he's in any big trouble. I mean, black is having chances, yeah, but it's not like black is better or winning or anything. This has really helped black quite a lot, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we see now here after queen g2 he spent, look the clock, 17 minutes to 12 minutes, and was aware that okay, I'm in trouble now. b5 was coming, of course. And now white is falling apart. So very strong game by Naka, winning here against a very strong Caruana. And this means Nakamura is now in the sole lead with 3 wins and 1 loss. 3 wins came after a disastrous loss in round 1, and then he won 3 in a row. And where against Kramnik he was very lucky, but then he played a good game on Sunday, winning, and now winning again. He beat Carlsen in a very nice Grunfeld on Saturday, and now this very convincing win with black in a nice night off against Caruana. Caruana now lost 2 white games in the night off against was it Gelfand? Yeah, against Gelfand and this one. So Caruana lost 2 white games already, strangely enough. Alright, so I hope you liked the round. Some games weren't so interesting, but Nakamura played an excellent game, and we can look forward to further interesting chess in this tournament. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with round 5 coverage.